Time for a Man in Gray book review. The Mousetrap 70th Anniversary Edition by Agatha Christie was published in 2023 by Orion Books. It's 245 pages. In 1947, Agatha Christie was commissioned to write a 30-minute radio play for the BBC in honor of, or to celebrate Queen Mary's 80th birthday. The radio play she came up with was called Three Blind Mice because it was about a murderer who's after three victims, and they don't know that they're being targeted for the murder. So Three Blind Mice ran in 1947 on the radio, and it was very popular, and so Christie rewrote the radio play as a short story, and it was published in the United States, but not in Britain, under the title Three Blind Mice. And then Christie got a chance to expand the radio play into a full-length stage play. And she wanted to call it Three Blind Mice again. But there had already been a play with that title that had been run in the West End a few years before. So she was forced to come up with another title. And so Three Blind Mice became The Mousetrap. The Mousetrap opened in London's West End in 1952, and it became a phenomenon. It ran from 1952 until 2000, when all the theaters in Britain were closed because of the COVID lockdown. As soon as the COVID lockdown ended, The Mousetrap was the very first play in London to reopen. So it's run for over 70 years now, the longest running theatrical work in world history. A lot of people who go to The Mousetrap are people who don't normally go to the theater. It's one of those things that if you're a tourist in London, one of the things you check off your list is to go see The Mousetrap. So it's probably going to run forever. One of the interesting things is in her contract, when she came up with the contract for this play, she had it written down, Christie had it written down, that there couldn't be a movie version of The Mousetrap until the play stopped running in the West End. And since the play has continued to run, except for that brief period when it was shut down because of COVID, there's never been a movie version of The Mousetrap. There can't be because it's not allowed as long as there's a theatrical production running in the West End. And so if you want to experience Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap, you either have to track down a local production somewhere or you have to read this book. The other interesting thing is that when Christie's grandson was 9 years old, she gave the rights to this play to him as a birthday present. Of course, as a 9-year-old, he probably didn't appreciate that very much, but it went on to make him millions of dollars. He's a millionaire now, thanks to his grandmother's generosity in making a birthday present of the rights to this play. All right, so the play itself is a classic locked room, cozy mystery. There's a married couple. They've only been married for about a year, and they buy an old country estate about 30 miles outside of London, out in the country, and they decide to turn it into a hotel. And as the play opens, the wife is listening to the radio, and it turns out there's been a brutal murder in London the day before, and the killer is on the loose, and the police are looking for him. Six customers show up at the hotel to spend the week, and as they start showing up, a huge blizzard hits, and it gets worse and worse, and so eventually all the roads are snowed in, nobody can get in or out. So that's the locked room aspect of it. Then, shortly after all the guests get there, there's another guest, an unexpected one, shows up, a guy with an East European accent who says that his car got stuck in a snowbank and he needs a place to stay. So he's the extra guest. And then the wife gets a call from the police, and they say that there's a police sergeant on the way to the hotel to do an investigation. Well, the wife doesn't know what's going on. Why is she being investigated? And it turns out that all of the guests have various eccentricities. They're all kind of stereotypical English eccentrics. Well, the police sergeant shows up on skis because the roads are all blocked. Shows up on skis, and the police sergeant says that the killer back in London was years before was a little boy that was sent to a foster home. He and his sister and his other brother were all taken from their parents and sent to a foster home out in the country. But the foster family was extremely brutal to them and abusive, and one of the brothers died because of this. Now, this is actually based on a true story. There actually was this notorious case in the early 1940s of a boy who died in foster care, and it so shocked the British public that the Parliament passed new laws, new regulations regulating foster care. And so Christie was drawing on that for this play. So the killer is apparently the one of the boys that survived this brutal foster care thing. He's grown up and now he's out for revenge. And the person he killed in London was one of the people involved in this brutal foster care thing. Well, the police sergeant says that there's reason to believe that the killer is inside the hotel, and the two other victims are guests there. And so the question is, who's the killer and who are the victims? None of the people will confess to anything. They all deny having any knowledge of this foster care case from years before. And as the play progresses, we learn that all of the people in the hotel have a secret that they've been hiding from people. There's a young man who shows up who's very effeminate, and he says that he's an artist and an architect, but it turns out he's actually a deserter from the army. He's an army deserter, and he's on the lam from the military police. There's a older, very grumpy woman who turns out she was the judge who sent these kids to their doom in this foster care situation. The Italian or the East European guy who claims that he got into a wreck or a snowbank, he's wearing makeup, probably to disguise himself. There's a elderly man, or a middle-aged man actually, who's retired, claims he's a retired military man, but when questioned, he doesn't seem to know very much about the army. And even the married couple have secrets. The wife and husband secretly went to London the day before, the day of the murder, and didn't tell each other. So, who in this cast of eccentrics, all of them have secrets? Which of them is the murderer? Which of them are the victims? The whole play comes to a crescendo when the sergeant discovers that the skis that he skied in on are missing. So obviously the killer is planning on killing someone and then escaping on skis. And of course, because the roads are all blocked, nobody can chase him. So it's a really entertaining play. And it's famous for the surprise ending. There's a real twist ending at the surprise. And at the end of every performance, one of the cast members comes out on stage after the curtain call and tells people, please don't give away the secret. So I'm certainly not going to do that now. I'm not going to tell you what happens. But it's one of those classic Agatha Christie twist endings where you don't see the killer coming, or probably you don't. Although there are clues dropped in throughout the play as to who the murderer actually is. But there's also a lot of false clues or red herrings too. So that's what makes this play so much fun to watch. It's a cozy mystery. It's not deep. The characters are just stereotypes. The dialogue is nothing special. But Agatha Christie was famous, and the reason she's so popular, she was famous for crafting really intricate puzzle-like plots. And this one has a great puzzle plot with all these crazy characters, and each one of them could be the killer. Each one could be a victim. Who are they? And then, of course, there's this great surprise ending. The only caveat I have about this particular edition is at the end of the play, there's this long afterword where it's mostly made up of a whole bunch of newspaper reviews of the play when it opened in the 1950s, none of which are really interesting to read. And then there's a whole series of photographs about various reunion casts over those 70 years. And again, who cares, you know? So most of the material at the end of the play is just tacked in there to pad out the book to make it, book length, a longer book. You don't really have to read any of the afterwards. It's not really important. It's not really interesting. The play itself is the thing. So if you've never seen the Mousetrap or experienced, if you're an Agatha Christie fan, but you've never read or experienced the Mousetrap, you really have to read this because you'll really get a kick out of it. It's a wonderful, entertaining, lightweight, cozy mystery play. The book is The Mousetrap, 70th Anniversary Edition The author is Agatha Christie. This has been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.